Fam, you prayed about you prayed about the same thing for 6 months and got nothing back. You had no feeling, no verse that landed, no open door, no closed door, no sign, nothing. Just you talking out loud in your car, to the wall, to the ceiling, to a room, then getting on with your day like it never happened. And here's the part no one says out loud. You have started to wonder if you're talking to know anybody at all. Welcome to another episode of Faith Friday on your favorite show, the Anchor Daily Show with Nate Mlambo. This is where we expose the misleading beliefs Christians believe and we help you live a life anchored in Christ. Today we're going after one of the big ones. And realize that when God goes quiet, when most Christians make the same mistake. And it is not doubt, because doubt itself is not a mistake. The mistake is that you decide the silence is a message about you. You go looking for the sin that caused it. You try harder to earn God's favor again. You buy the plan. And the whole time, there is a much simpler thing sitting right in front of you that you're stepping over just to get to the hard thing. Here's my promise for this episode. By the time we're done, you will know the difference between God being silent and God being gone. Those are not the same. And mixing them up costs people years. And you will know exactly what to do tomorrow morning when you wake up and nothing has changed. I want you to hold on to something. In John chapter 11, there is 2 day gap. There is a 2 day gap. 2 days where Jesus does nothing. While a man he loves is dying. And sitting inside that gap is one small word. 3 letters. So people read past it. That word changes how you read every quiet season you will ever have. And I'm going to show it to you. But before we go anyway, just type in the chat how long it has been for you, the quiet season. How long has it been? Not a number that you're proud of, the real one. It could be weeks, could be months, could be years. And some of you might type a number that scares you as you type it. And that's good. You are in the right room. So one thing to hold, 400 years. Write that down. 400 years. That number is going to matter more than anything else I say to you today. And I'm not going to explain it until much later. And let me take you to the text. John chapter 11. 2 verses. That is all we need today. So we're going to set the scene first. Because if you do not know the people, the verses do not hit. So during Jesus's time, there is a family that Jesus is close to. 3 of them. 2 sisters, Mary and Martha, and their brother Lazarus. These are not strangers that you just find in a crowd during those times. This is the house Jesus stays at. These are his friends. Lazarus gets sick, badly sick. The sisters send word to Jesus. They do not send a long speech. They send a basically one line. The one you love is sick. That is the whole prayer. That's it. And I want you to notice how honest it is. They do not tell him what to do. They do not build a case. They just tell him where it hurts and trust that he will handle it. Now, here is verse 5 and verse 6. We're going to look at that. Now, Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So, when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days. Read that again with me, slowly, because your brain is going to try to fix it. Jesus loved them. So he stayed where he was 2 more days. Your brain wants that your brain wants that sentence to say something else. Your brain wants it to say, but Jesus loved them, but he stayed. Like the love and the delay are fighting each other, and the delay won. That is not what it says. It says so. If you're just listening, so, S-O, is highlighted. Jesus loved them, so he waited. That is a 3-letter word. That is the whole episode. In most translations, it is so. In other, maybe older King James, it is therefore. Same idea either way. The waiting is not happening in spite of love. The waiting is coming out of the love. There is an important distinction right there. Sit in that for a second, because it is offensive at first. 2 more days. And in those days, Lazarus dies. The sisters watch their brother die while the person on earth who could have stopped it is a 2-day walk away, choosing not to come. Whatever those 2 days felt like in that house did not feel like love. It felt like being ignored. It felt like the message did not get through. Or it got through and did not matter. And the text tells us plainly, before we ever get to what happens next, that the delay was not the absence of his love. It was an expression of it. So here is the principle everything else today is built on. One sentence, only one, nothing more. Delay is not the opposite of love. Sometimes it is the proof of it. I want to say that again because I don't think you caught it. Delay is not the opposite of love. Sometimes it is the proof of it. Now, before anyone runs off with that and hurts themselves with this teaching, I need to flag something and then leave it alone. There is one kind of silence that is not a season. It is not formation. It is not God doing something deep. Treating it like it's a spiritual season will hurt you, and it will delay the help you actually need. I will tell you to spot it before we finish. I'm not going to skip it, and I'm not going to bury it at the end when half of you are already gone. It's going to get its own segment. But before I tell you what the mistake is, I have to tell you what it costs. Because if nothing is at stake, this is just an interesting episode, and you will forget it by Sunday. So let me show you the cost with someone, and we'll give this person a name, an example, as an example, just to help us picture this. So imagine we've got someone called Emily, 38. She's a marketing manager, 2 kids, 7 and 4, married. She has believed in God since she was 19, and she has not stopped believing for one day since. A Tuesday looks like this. Alarm at 5:40 in the morning because she read that the strong Christians get up early. She makes coffee. She opens the app, 12 minutes, 15 minutes. She reads the verse and she reads the little paragraph under the verse. And she closes it and feels exactly the same as when she opened it. Then the 7-year-old is up and the day takes her. Work, emails, a meeting that should have been an email, pick up, dinner, bath, go to bed. And maybe at 9:40 at night, she's on the couch scrolling, and a thought goes past that she does not let herself finish. And the thought is, I do not think he is there. She does not say it out loud. She would never say it out loud. She's on the volunteer schedule at church. Now, here is what the cost is for her. And I want you to hear all four because this is the price tag. 1, She loses years, not days. Emily has been waiting for clarity on the same decision since she was 34. She's 38 now. Nothing about her has changed except her age. 4 years is not a season. 4 years is a chapter of your life. Second thing, prayer turns into performance. She keeps talking about, she keeps talking out loud every night to someone she has quietly decided is not listening. That is a corrosive thing to do to yourself night after night. It does not make you godly, it makes you numb. Three, she becomes a person who knows more and does less. 6 podcasts a week, 3 devotional books on the shelf, 2 of them finished. And when you ask her what she actually obeyed this year, there is a pause. That is not growth. That is collecting. 4, and this one is the one that keeps me up. Almost nobody walks away from their faith in a big dramatic argument. That is not how it goes. People leave in a quiet season that nobody helped them read correctly. It is slow, it is polite, there is no announcement. One day they just notice they have not prayed in 5 months and they do not feel much about it either way. That is the cost. Not a crisis, a slow fade. Tell me in the comments which one of those is closest to you right now. 1, 2, or 3. We'll look at them. Christians who love the Bible do not all agree on how God speaks to people today. Some believe he speaks personally right now to individuals on top of what is written in Scripture. Others believe he has already spoken fully in Scripture, and that is where you go. Both groups are full of serious, faithful people. I'm not going to stand here and pretend that argument is settled just because it will make my episode tidier and less provocative. Here is where I land. I believe God speaks, and I believe almost everything he wants to say to you is already written down and already ignored. So when someone tells me God is not speaking, I can't hear God's voice, my first question is never about their ears. It is about the last page they read and did nothing with. Either way, what I'm teaching today holds. Because the mistake I'm about to describe does not depend on which side of that you land on. So let me put the 3 mistakes on the screen for you. And then you will take them one at a time. Well, we will take them one at a time. The 3 mistakes. Mistake number 1, He stopped talking to me because I did something wrong. Mistake number two. If I want it badly enough, I can make the silence end. Mistake number three. I cannot move until he tells me what to do. So I am waiting. Look at those for a second. Most of you are already in one of them, and you know which one. So, mistake number one, he stopped talking to me because I did something wrong. This is where most people go first, and it is almost automatic. The room goes quiet, and you assume you're being punished. So, Emily starts scanning. What did I do? Was it the thing I said about my sister? Was it what I have been watching? Is it because I skipped church 3 weeks in a row in February? The questions keep coming. And now prayer is not a conversation anymore. It is an interview where she is a suspect. She's not talking to God. She's defending herself to him. Every morning is more evidence against her. Here is what is wrong with that. Look at the family in John 11. What did they do wrong? Nothing. The text goes out of its way to tell us Jesus loved them. The delay had nothing to do with their failure. Now, I'm not going to tell you sin never affects your prayer life. That would be a lie, and the Bible says otherwise. Sometimes you know exactly why it is quiet. But you do not need to tell me to tell you that. But there is a difference between conviction and suspicion. Conviction is specific. It names one thing. It is a finger pointing at a door. Suspicion is a fog. It has no name, no door, and no way out. If you have been searching your heart for 4 months and cannot name the thing, it is not God convicting you. God is not vague when he wants you to change something. Mistake number two. If I want it badly enough, I can make the silence end. This one is more flattering, so it is harder to spot. The first mistake makes you feel guilty. This one makes you feel like a hero. So you go harder, longer prayer, add a fast, new worship playlist, another conference, another plan. Because somewhere underneath, you believe that there is a level of effort that will get a response out of him. You're not seeking God at this point. You're working a machine. and you think it is stuck, and you have decided if you hit it hard enough, something will drop. I want to be careful. Prayer, fasting, worship, all of that is good. I'm not against any of it. But watch the motive, because the motive is doing something ugly. It has quietly turned God into a system with a cheat code. And it's turning you into the person who's trying to crack it. And it never works. There is a reason it never works. If the quiet is a season God chose, then more effort does not end it. It just makes you tired inside the same season. Now you're exhausted and you still have not heard anything. And you have added one more piece of evidence to the file that says the problem is you. Mistake number 3 that people make. And this is the big one. This is the one this whole episode is really about. I cannot move until he tells me what to do. So I am waiting. Fam, this one is dangerous because it sounds like faith. It uses faith words. It looks like patience from the outside. Somebody at church will call it wisdom. But most of the time, it is doing something else entirely. And I will show you what it is in about 90 seconds. Emily says that she's waiting on God about a marriage, about the job, about whether to have the hard conversation with the mother. She is praying about it. She is asking for clarity. And she already knows what she's supposed to do. She has known for 11 months. Okay, let me show you the shape of this from a different direction because I see this pattern even in the fitness world every single week. And it is the same mistake wearing different clothes. It's a pattern. It's human nature. Somebody starts a training program, let's say, for example, week 1, they love it. Week 2, they're still good. Week 3, they message me and they want a new program. Not because they got hurt, because it stopped working, because it stopped being interesting. Week 3 is the week the newness wears off and the thing becomes work. And in that exact week, right on schedule, the human brain says, I need a new plan. I need some excitement. You do not need a new plan. You need to finish week 3. And I will tell you what happens to the person who chases the new plan every time. The feeling actually goes away and drops. 5 years later, they have tried 11 programs and they are the same size they were when they started. They have collected a lot of information and completed nothing. Now put that on your prayer life. The feeling drops, the newness wears off, and you go looking for a new word from God. When God is looking at the last one He gave you, and you have not finished it. So if we go back to John 11, I promise you that word. Jesus loved them. So He stayed where He was 2 more days. Now, let me tell you what happened after the 2 days, because this is why the so is there in that verse. Jesus goes. By the time He arrives, Lazarus has been dead for 4 days, buried, sealed in a tomb. Martha comes out to meet Him, and she says a sentence every single one of us has said in some form. If you had been here, my brother would not have died. That is not a nice, polite church sentence. That is a woman telling God to His face that He was late. And He does not correct her for it. He does not tell her to have more faith. He asks where they put Him. He weeps at the tomb. The shortest verse in your Bible. And it is God standing at a grave crying with the people He loves. A funeral He could have prevented and chose not to. Then He calls a dead man out of a tomb by name. And the dead man walks out. Here is what I want you to see. And this is a turn. If Jesus had come when they called, Lazarus gets healed. A sick man gets better. It is a good day. And it is a story maybe 12 people remember. Remember, He had healed a lot of people. Because He waited, a dead man walks. And 2,000 years later, you and I are still talking about it on a Friday. The 2 days of silence were not empty. The 2 days of silence were the reason the story is bigger than the request. They asked Him to heal a sick man. He was doing something the request did not have room for. I want to hear from you. Has there been a time you look back on now, years later, where you are glad you did not get the thing you were begging for? Just put it in the comments. Not the pretty version, the real one. All right. So here's the thing I actually came to say here. Let's look at this part. Most of the time, when God feels silent, it is not a hearing problem. It is a lost instruction problem. You're not stuck because he has not spoken. You're stuck because you're standing at a door. He already told you to walk through, asking him to say it again in a way that is easier to obey. That is the mistake. That is the whole mistake. I was actually watching a reel. My friend sent me a reel. This guy made a video on how people expect God to speak to them. And the guy was acting out. He was like, okay, the first version, what people expect, this is the reality. The the expectation is that people think that God will say, "Good morning, my son. Good morning, my daughter. It is time for you to wake up. Today, I want you to quit your job." And then you have a conversation with God and ask Him as well, "Oh, how should I do it? Should I send an email? Should I text? Should I call? Should I go in?" Then God says, "Hmm, I think you should maybe go in so that you don't burn any bridges." Okay, I'll do that. Okay, so what do you have for me next? Well, I will show you, but you have to do this first. And then you can say, "Oh God, by the way, how about my my husband or my wife? When am I going to get married? Hmm. Your wife is currently traveling. She's exploring the world. Okay, right? So that's one version where people sometimes expect or God speaks to them. But in reality, as you just go on about your day, you wake up in the morning or you're praying, God can simply just say, "Quit your job." That's it. End of conversation. End of discussion. That's it. Sometimes that's really what it's like when you're hearing from God. Sometimes just straightforward, take the step. So think about what you're actually asking for. You're asking for a new word, but you have not done the last word. So what you're really asking for is a replacement instruction, a different one, an easier one that does not cost the thing the first one costs. And you have dressed it up in spiritual language that is available, that you can find online, maybe with other friends. Seeking God's will, waiting on clarity. I'm praying about it. You are not waiting on clarity. You have clarity. You do not like the clarity. Say out, say it out loud with me. And then I'll show you the other half. Because there is another half, and it is important. You do not have a hearing problem. You have a last instruction problem. Now, the other half, because I refuse to leave the honest people out. Some of you have done the last thing. You forgave. You told the truth. You stopped the thing you were hiding. You went and you sat down and you had the conversation, and it cost you exactly what you thought it would cost you. And it is still quiet. That is not the same problem. And I'm not going to lump you in with the first group. For you, the silence is not discipline, it is a season. And there are things that only grow in a quiet season. Which brings me to that number I gave you at the start. This number, if you remember, this is the number 400 years. That is roughly the gap between the last book of the Old Testament and the first page of the New Testament. Excuse me. Malachi to Matthew, about 4 centuries, where, as far as the record goes, there is no prophet, there is no new word, nothing. Think about what that means. A person is born into that silence, lives their whole life in it, dies in it. Their children are born into it. Generations of faithful people praying, keeping the feasts, teaching their kids, and no one gets an answer. Not one of them lived to see end. And you wonder, what was God doing across those 400 years? He was getting ready to send his son. The longest silence in the Bible ended with the best news in history. So when you tell me it has been quiet for 8 months and you're worried God has forgotten you, I hear you and I take it seriously. 8 months is long. 8 months hurts. But you're reading the quiet as an ending. And the pattern in scripture is that quiet is almost never an ending. 2 days at Bethany, 400 years between the books. In both cases, people inside the silence could not see what the silence was for. In both cases, the silence was the last stretch of road before something bigger than the thing that they'd asked for. You're not at the end of the story. You're in the part of the story you cannot see the shape of yet. Those are not the same things. And telling them apart is almost of what faith actually is. All right. So let's get to the practical stuff, the 4 things. That is it, 4, because if I give you 11, you'll likely go and do 0 of them. So it is called the last thing, 4 moves. So right now I want you to grab a pen or just remember the name. The last thing. The last thing. 4 moves. I'll give you some time to just grab a pen and we can look at it together. So move number 1. Name the last thing. Get a piece of paper. Answer one question. What is the last clear instruction that I received and did not carry out? something clear as day, not a feeling, not vibes, not a general sense that you should be a better person, it's not something vague, something that you can act on, something with a verb in it that a stranger could not check. It could be forgive him, stop drinking, tell your wife about the money, go to church in person instead of watching it, apologize to your son, end the thing that you know you should end, stop watching what you know you shouldn't be watching. Most of you are not going to have to think hard. It showed up in your mind about 4 seconds ago. And some of you immediately started explaining to yourself why it does not count. I want you to write it down anyway. Write it down and write it down, because writing it down, that thing that is in your head, is so important. When you keep it in your head, it's just a feeling, it's just a thought. When you write that thing on paper, it is a fact. You can act on it. Move number 2. Do the same thing. Do the last thing before you ask for the next thing. Do the last thing before you ask for the next thing. This is it. That is the foundation. Everything else supports this. You do not get a new instruction because the old one got hard. You get a new instruction when the old one is done. And here is what I want you to notice right now. Obedience does not require the feeling. It never did. You do not need goosebumps to make a phone call. You don't need a word from heaven to say sorry to somebody and apologize. You already have everything you need to do the last thing. And you have it the entire time. You have been calling this a silent season. It's always been there with you. So do not tell me that it is quiet if you have not done the last thing. And most likely it was loud. So make sure to do the last loud thing he said. And some of you have written yours down. You do not have to type the thing itself. That is between you and God. But anyway, just type yes if you have at least written one thing right now. Just put something in the comments. I want to see how many people are actually in the same boat. And then move number 3. Keep the table set. Here's what I mean. So imagine you're expecting someone for dinner. You do not know exactly what day they're coming. So what do? You set the table anyway. You keep it ready. Not because setting the table makes them come, because when they come, you want to be ready. That's it. That is what you're reading, and you're praying, and you're gathering with other believers is doing in a quiet season. You're preparing. You're not performing to make God show up. You're staying ready. So read on the days it does nothing. Pray on the days it feels like like you're talking to a wall. Go to church on the Sunday. You feel like nothing. During the songs, you don't feel anything, especially those days. Because here is what faithfulness actually is. And this is not the cute version. Faithfulness is what you keep doing when the feeling stops paying you back. Anybody can do the thing when it feels good. It's easy. The whole test is what happens when it stops feeling like anything. Imagine Abraham. I bet it didn't feel good having to go sacrifice Isaac. But he became God's friend because he was faithful. He still listened to God. He still listened to God. He was promised. He was blessed because he was faithful. He was God's friend because of his faith. And I want to fix an expectation while we're here because a lot of people quit at exactly this spot. 12 minutes with an app in the morning is not a bad thing. But if that is your whole spiritual life and it produces nothing, the problem might not be that God is quiet. The problem might be that you are getting little snacks of Bible instead of meals of it. Try reading a whole chapter. Read the same chapter every day for a week, not a paragraph about the chapter written by someone else. Read the full chapter. Gives you a bit more context, more depth. Because you would not train for 6 months at 10% effort and then conclude that the gym does not work. Okay, move number 4. Do not wait alone. Every single one of these silent seasons gets more dangerous in isolation. And isolation is exactly what it makes you want. Because it is embarrassing sometimes. It might feel embarrassing, not that it is embarrassing. Let's not be definitive. It can feel that way. Because you have been the strong Christian in your friend group for 9 years. You lead the small group, you lead Bible study. And now you're going to walk in and say, I do not know if he's listening to me anymore. Yes, that is exactly what you're going to do. One person, not a Facebook post, not a prayer request in a group chat, not a vague comment. One person in a room out loud. Don't keep it yourself. Do not isolate yourself. And I will tell you why this matters more than the other 3. Alone, your brain will explain your silence to you. It will build a story with no one to check it. And the story it builds is almost never God is doing something deep. The story it builds is usually I am the problem. And I have always been the problem. You need one person who can hear that story. Your priest, your pastor. Say it out loud and say, no, that is not what is happening here. That story, don't keep that story in your head. So here is all four of them put together for you. I'll put them here on the screen. Name the last thing. Do the last thing before you ask for the next thing. Keep the table set. Do not wait alone. If you're just listening, this is just a recap. I've got it on screen, but this is a recap of the four things. Because this is the whole framework. Four things. You can hold four things in your head walking to your car, and you can screenshot this one. It's just four easy things to remember. So let me put this on a real week, because a framework you cannot picture is a framework you'll not use to actually understand how can you fit it into your actual week, because that is important. That is one of the most important things. So back to Emily, same woman, 38, two kids, 12 minutes in the morning, nothing coming back. Friday night, she writes one sentence on a piece of paper, not a prayer, not a journal entry, one sentence. The last clear thing was to call my mother and apologize 11 months ago. She's been praying for direction about a career the entire 11 months. Saturday, she calls her mother. It takes 9 minutes, and it is awkward. And her mother is short with her. It does not obviously probably end in a big hug and a happy ending. It is just done. And it is done in a way that cannot be undone by her feeling about it later. Sunday, she goes to church in person for the first time in 6 weeks. She feels nothing during the music, during worship, during praise. She sings anyway. Table set. Monday, she reads Luke chapter 15, the whole chapter, not the app. It takes her 14 minutes, and she's not getting a lightning bolt. She comes back, she reads the same chapter on Tuesday. Wednesday, she tells one friend out loud over coffee, I've not felt God in about a year. And I have not told anybody. And a friend does not gasp or panic. A friend says, yeah, me too, since the surgery. Now, here is what I'm not going to promise you. I'm not going to promise you that on Thursday, the heavens open. I do not know that. I'll be lying to you. What I will tell you is that by Thursday, Emily is a different kind of person. A different kind of person than she was on Friday. Nothing external changed. Her career question is exactly as unanswered as it was a week ago. But she's not stuck anymore. There is nothing outstanding on her side. She did the thing She stayed ready and she stopped waiting alone. And a person in a quiet season who has done those three things is completely different from a person in a quiet season who has done none of those. One is waiting, the other one was hiding and calling it waiting. Now, the thing that I promised you near the top, I'm not skipping it. Sometimes what you're calling spiritual silence is not spiritual. Sometimes it is depression. Sometimes it is grief that has not been dealt with. Sometimes it is burnout, a body running on 4 hours of sleep for a year, or something that needs a doctor and not a devotional. Here is roughly how I tell the difference. Now, I want to be straight with you. I'm not a doctor, and this is not a diagnosis. It is a rough sort of thing that I'm sharing with you. A quiet season usually touches your faith. You still laugh at your kids, you still enjoy your food, you still care about your work. It is God specifically that has gone quiet. The other thing touches everything. Nothing tastes like anything. You do not want to see people. You cannot get up. It is not just that God feels afar, it is that everything feels far. And it has been like that for weeks or months. If that is you, hear me clearly. You do not need a better quiet time. You need to talk to a doctor or a licensed counselor. And doing that is not a spiritual failure. Nobody in scripture is praised for suffering quietly and alone until they broke. And if you're somewhere darker than that, if you have had thoughts of hurting yourself, please do not sit with that through the weekend. Call a crisis line, talk to a pastor, priest, go to a church in your country, in your city, in your town, or reach out to someone tonight. That is not a lesser step than prayer. Get the help you need. I'm also not the guy for grief that has never been grieved. That is a pastor, a counselor, or someone who's both, often both. So, last practical thing, and this one is for the person who has been doing this a long time. Stop waiting for the silence to end before you make decisions. Some of you have paused your whole life. You will not take the job. You will not move. You will not stop the thing until you get a clear word. Excuse me. You have made God's quiet into a red light. Deuteronomy 29, verse 29, has a phrase I keep coming back to. The secret things belong to God. The things that are revealed belong to us so that we may do them. Read that ending again. Not so we may study them, not so we may discuss them in a group chat on Wednesday, so that we may do them. Action. The hidden stuff is his business, God's business. The revealed stuff is yours. And you have got a pile of revealed stuff sitting there untouched while you knock on the door with the hidden stuff asking for more. You already have enough to obey for the next 6 months. Go do that and let him handle the part you cannot see. So the comments always open. I will let you guys leave a comment. How do I know? Right. Let me know. How do I know? Some people might have questions like, how do I know if it is sin or just a season? Questions. That is something that we can look into and talk about. So the discernment when you come to a question like that. So if you figure out like, okay, if you've been hunting for 4 months and cannot name it, or you've been hurting for 4 months and you cannot name it, that is likely not God speaking. God is very specific. So, fam, that is our hour as we've gone through this today, right? So, what I want to show you, actually, before we wrap up, we're up an hour. I think I've got a few more things that I want us to go through. So, I want you to sit with these for a second. I'm going to show you just a reflection. So, sit with these for a second. So, what is the last clear thing God told me to do that I have not done? Just sit with these for a second. And the second thing is, am I actually waiting on him or is he waiting on me? The second one is going to sting for some of you. So just stick with it this weekend. Just sit with it and yeah, see what that answer is going to be. Okay? So the next, I would say, the last thing that I want you to do is before you ask God for anything new this week, anything new, write down the last thing he has already said. This is the most important thing. Write it down on paper. You can get a journal, write it down in your journal. There are also prompts that help you reflect every day, every week with a 30-day journal, 90-day journal. There's a year journal as well that's available. You can check the links in the description. But write it down. Not just thinking about it, not just praying about whether to do it or not, because you've probably already prayed for it. This is how you know what it is when you write it down. Put it in a sentence and do this before Sunday. Do this before Sunday. So, if you're joining us, listening, watching, I've put it on the screen. You can come and watch it. It says, write down the last thing is already said. Wherever you are, I think you can find the journals. If you're just listening as well, there should be links in the description, or you can find the books on Amazon, right? So make sure to check those. Because remember, 2,000 years ago, there were 2 days in a house in Bethany where two sisters, Mary and Martha, watched their brother die. And God, who loved them, did not come. They were not being punished. They were not forgotten. They were not doing it wrong. They were inside that story, a story that was bigger than the one they had asked for. And they could not see it from where they were sitting. You cannot see it from where you were sitting either. That is not a defect in your faith. That is what the inside of a story looks like. So do the last thing. Keep the table set. Do not sit in that room by yourself. Next Friday, we're going straight into the question every single one of you is about to type at me. What if I do not know what the last thing was? We're building the whole episode on it. So bring your paper, bring your journal. That has been Faith Friday on Anchor Daily Show.